My name is Master Gunnery Sergeant Anthony Green, United States Marine Corps retired. Did 30 years in the Marine Corps infantry side. The thing that changed me in boot camp is being decisive. I wasn't that guy in high school, maybe that was hesitant to try something or make a decision. Boot camp taught me how to think faster, make a split decision, and to focus on something that you're going after.
Whenever I was a kid, I was in junior ROTC. I'm a third generation military. But whenever I graduated, I kind of rebelled. I kind of wanted to get away from that aspect. And I wasn't doing anything right. Everything was kind of going to the wayside. And I could see it in my grandfather's eyes that I was letting him down. And to me, that was a gut-wrenching thing. He was a World War II Marine. And to me, it was more important to be able to show him that I was more than what he was seeing. So at finish line, the recruiter came in and I said, I'm joining. And he thought I was joking.
So I was up there, Headquarters Marine Corps, for 2.5 years, and it's kind of getting bored myself, and I realized I probably don't need to be up here as a infantry sergeant. I need to do something that's going to enhance my career. So I went to see my career planner and got him to get me to go down to Parris Island, South Carolina. That's when I went to drill instructor school and I became a drill instructor. Still at the rank of sergeant. Drill instructor duty is hard on the body. Mentally, it can be challenging as well. I was always told by older Marines, much senior than I was, that hey, if you plan on being a drill instructor, don't get married. They have a high divorce rate down there, and which they did. They did, but it's like I said, at the time I wasn't married, and I enjoyed myself down there. It was a tough life, hard on the body, like I said, but it was rewarding at the same time, and it was even more rewarding when after the tour was over and a Marine comes up to you and he remembers you, whether he was in your platoon or not, and he said, "Hey, I remember you. You were my drill instructor, or you were somebody else's drill instructor." Or I even had Marines tell me, "Hey, you were the guy that got me off the bus at 0:30 at night. I remember you." So
when I joined, I was maybe 140 pounds, soaking wet. I was a runner, but most of the reasons why I'd been failing up to that point was because I was running from everything. I had high anxiety for everything, and I realized I can't just keep doing that. And I figured the worst case scenario, I could go to boot camp and at least say I tried. But through every adversity I was getting through, as I was going through there, I didn't quit. I just kept going. Yeah. I mean, at that point, I'm 22, 23 years old. Technically still a kid. Everybody wants to get over there so that they can say and get that check mark in the box. And at first, all I wanted to do was go out on the convoys. I wanted to get out there. Everybody wants to get that combat action ribbon so that they can say that they're, they went, they did. Somehow they're showing more manliness. And I specifically remember one convoy. I was supposed to go and repair some of the equipment at one of the forward operating bases. I got pulled off of that convoy, which ended up getting blown up. We ended up losing. We lost one Marine. We lost a reporter, and a bunch of other individuals got hurt. It was kind of surreal at that moment because I'm like, this is exactly what I asked for. This is the high and the adrenaline that I'm asking for. And now I have almost a survivor's guilt in that exact moment. The way that it would normally work is directly after. You don't let anybody see. Like, you just go back out as if nothing happened. So we would dismount off that, and I remember going through and seeing all of the medic equipment that was used on those individuals. You could tell exactly where everything happened, where the explosion happened. But trying to show no sign of weakness, that, hey, this is our job, this is what we have to do. Some places and some units might have had minesweepers. We did not. So it was line of sight. It's kind of surreal as well, wondering if this next step is going to be the next one or the last one. So I remember completely freezing. And then as I came back from that deployment saying, what was that? I asked for this. I asked to go. This is where I wanted to be. So how is it in that moment? I froze up. I needed somebody to say, hey, wake the hell up. Let's go. At the time, I was a corporal. I looked up to one of my sergeants, Dathan. And I looked at him without actually ever telling him, how is he able to do this? I mean, before he was infantry, he transferred over to another job, but I compared myself as like, how is he able to continue on and treat it like it's nothing? But as time went on, especially looking at it where we are now, it wrecked him. He never spoke on it. He was able to in those moments, but whenever we came back, it took a lot of time for him to be able to recover. And I don't know if he is able to recover since. So it's the two sides of the coin is one way to look at it. I was able to look up to him in those of wanting to replicate and emulate him. But at what cost?
We held up in Bahrain for almost most of the time. And then we got sent up to the port of Al Shaweik in Kuwait City. And there was a lot going on up there. We had French, British, and Australian EOD up there. And they were shorthanded because they were using some of their guys for security, and at the same time, they're trying to locate mines. So we were exactly what they needed for that time. A lot of Scud missile fire. Patriot missiles were right on. They were knocking them out of the sky. It was like watching fireworks at night. And that's when I saw, during Desert Storm, that's when I saw my first actual dead person that wasn't in a casket. He'd been out in the ground for, I don't know, could have been a week. His body was in pretty bad shape. He was along that area called, they call it the Highway of Death. It was a bunch of Iraqi vehicles. It looks like they were heading back up into Iraq, and they got as many stories about what happened, but all I know, there were bodies everywhere. And, the smell of that area, being out there, something you never forget. Anybody that's ever smelled a dead, rotten body before, that's something that will stay with you. And I don't know, I guess for like a year, I don't know, I couldn't eat dirty rice. It kind of reminded me of that smell. No offense to to Popeyes or any of these other places out there or anybody that makes it, but I just kind of associated the two together, the smell, I don't know. But it, I was glad I saw things like that, and it was a definite eye-opener. We heard about Marines or Army getting killed out there, and it was, sad, because we kept hearing all kind of rumors about we don't know when we're going home, and there were people, around me, they were freaking out, getting upset. Oh, I want to be back home. It was really starting to get to a lot of people, and they were starting to get to me, and my whole attitude was like, hey, we're Marines, that's what we're here for. If we don't make it back, that's the hand that we are dealt. You should expect that. So I try to remove myself from people that were having these, their little meltdowns or whatever. But I felt like when it was all over, when I got back home, I felt like I was a different person. Like, wow, I can take anything. You got your chest stuck out a little bit. You feel tough. It's an experience that I'm glad that I went through. And I grew up a lot after that. And I had in my mind, once you realize that you can die, you really realize that you can die, that changed your whole outlook on life. And that's what it did for me.
For the longest time, seeking help, especially in certain fields, was not allowed because you had the potential of losing your job. If you, as we called it, sought the wizard, which just meant going to mental health specialists or seeking any of those things, it was frowned upon. One of the most important aspects that needed focused on was the reintegration. Yeah, you went off, you got help. But now that stigma occurred of, okay, well, you just came out of work. Now everybody else has to cover down on you. And there was a gap there. The more that we focus now on reintegrating the individual back in as if nothing happened, as if, it was the equivalent of breaking their leg. One specific Marine, we thought everything was going great. He made his way back out. He said he was done with the military, and we all saw him off. He took a European trip. Everybody got to watch via Facebook of all of the photos, everything he was doing. The last thing that he posted was about running with the bulls in Spain. And then 2 days later, he took his life. On the other end, the Marine that I was speaking about before that was pulled off the deployment, everything that he wanted to be was a Marine. Everything he wanted to do was deploy. And he was taken off of that. So his identity was attached to that. Within our crew, we all were very apparent of that. We all checked up on him, stayed with, and then whenever we deployed, the contact isn't as easy, and the people that we turned him over with, whether they were just not aware or to them it wasn't their responsibility, it went to the wayside. Yes, he did checks and boxes, but he didn't get all of the resources necessary and the help that he needed. And whenever we came back, it was shortly thereafter that he took his life as well. It's not every time that that's the case, though. Speaking of my best friend, he was a gunnery sergeant who was seeking help. He had all the resources. He had everything going for him, and it still didn't help. Each one of those is a different route. That from high to low to having to not having. And I think that's the frustrating thing in itself.
I was born in Ireland in 1934, lived in Scotland during the Second World War, came to the United States when I was 17 by myself, joined the United States Air Force in 1954, went to Frankfurt, Germany in 1955 in order to become a United States citizen. The greatest thing that has ever happened to me is to be able to participate in what this country can provide once it's unified with a single purpose. That is to do the best we can to reach what we possibly can and to help people along the way to do it. I am convinced that the majority of people who ever service in the military end up suffering what I call the DTs of life. The drama, trauma, and stress of living. To step out from a military environment, which is so tightly knit, to return to civilian life, particularly from career people, is very dramatic. there is a way of seeing things that has to be altered in order to survive in a environment where there is more openness and points of view. So I dedicated myself to becoming a counselor. Started out as an addiction counselor, know a little bit about mental health situations based on my own experience. And I've dedicated the last 40 some odd years of my life to helping not only the individual returning from, whenever it's appropriate, from some combat situation, suffering from PTSD or DTS, whatever the case may be, not only to meet with the individual, but with their permission, I also am a strong advocate that the family must be included. The family has suffered a great deal as they watch their loved ones struggle with PTSD, mental health, addiction. To me, it's all just an umbrella of men and women whose lives have been so shattered by what they've seen and what they witnessed, that the way that we try to provide some help to them right now is still not adequate enough. I've been retired from the United States military now since I was 42 years old. 48 years retired from them. I still have moments of my PTSD raising itself, the trauma when I see something just happens, okay? What has helped me a great deal, and most of the folks in the military that I found and met who spent their time being available just to support their fellow comrades after their horrifying experiences, is that the connection that we have with each other is the basic foundation of one human being helping another. I have a saying that has helped me a great deal. Behavior never lies. I lie about my behavior. Most of us veterans, okay, may not lie in the sense that I thought, but we have a tendency to embellish things because we're trying to protect those we love from our own mental health situations. And I would very bluntly say mental health. I think most of us have had some serious physical, mental, emotional, if you want to use the word spiritual dysfunction, that we need each other to find a way in which we can create a foundation in which we can heal. One of the things I've recently that was in a conversation about was the word shame. I think that the military people who suffered through some horrendous nightmares found themselves covered with shame because they didn't meet what they believed to be the requirements that they're supposed to achieve. How did that happen? I don't know. All I know is that I finally had to come face to face what we now call shame, which in the military we call PTSD. There is a correlation in my book when I feel the shame to me is to be nothing, to be totally worthless. And whether you're a military vet or not, in the circumstances in which we live today, I am willing to tell you that most people go through some form of trauma or drama or stress in their life. We need to start looking inwards collectively to reach our hand out. That the thing that may be having the biggest impact in America, the country I dearly love, is while we're great at taking care of other nations, why can't we take care of ourselves with the same commitment, the same dedication, and the same love that we profoundly expressed to those throughout the world? I am biased in what I say, but I will stand by my convictions. It is only through men and women that I was able to heal to such a point that I was able to perform in such a way that self-destruction was not the purpose of my life, but to heal, and in the process of healing, help others to understand the hope that healing is possible when one person sits down and just simply talks to another.